Today, we will recap the 2016 sci-fi action movie called Day of Reckoning, where every 15 years demonic creatures come out of the earth. So, let's get started. The story begins with power plant workers celebrating a co-worker's birthday. One of them checks the CCTV and suddenly notices some strange creatures entering through the shaft and flying towards the city. A lunar eclipse begins and millions of these creatures come out and start killing humans. The news coming through the radio urges people to seek shelter, while the military fights against these creatures. As all attempts prove futile, people start calling it the Day of Reckoning, and the creatures as Reckoner demons. Once the eclipse finishes, the creatures return to their origin, leaving the whole world in a devastated state. A global organization is established, and under this department, they create gates that are made up of tunnels and can help in preventing the creatures from coming into the world. 15 years pass since this tragic incident, and now everyone is back to their normal life. However, the news reports about an eclipse taking place the next day, which scares the public. The story then focuses on a divorced couple, Dave and Laura. Dave works as a janitor at a company, and Laura is a science teacher at a school. They have a 15-year-old son named Tyler, who was born during the reckoning. Dave wasn't there to take care of his pregnant wife, which led to their separation. On the other hand, Officer Garrett, who works at the gates, is resting in his room when he gets a call. He is asked to come and check the gates as huge seismic activity is noticed. Garrett abruptly leaves his home and goes to examine the system. On the other side, Dave picks Tyler from Laura's to spend the weekend together. Later, when Dave and Tyler are watching a movie, Dave gets a call from his uncle Ted, who tells Dave that the Day of Reckoning is tomorrow and he should bring his family to his shelter. Tyler watches the news of hundreds of dead fish in the ocean, the same thing which happened before the previous Day of Reckoning. Meanwhile, a Reckoner demon enters the world from an underground tunnel near the gates. As the sun rises, Dave gets a call from Laura asking him to bring Tyler home, as her friend Milton has arranged a shelter for them. Dave checks Tyler's room, where he learns that his son is not there, and instead finds a note stating that he is going out. Laura starts to panic, and Milton helps her in finding Tyler's location. He informs Laura that Tyler is in skate park. Meanwhile, Garrett spots a creature at the gates and alerts his nearby teammate Carl. Unfortunately, the creature attacks Carl, forcing Garrett to flee with the rest of the group. Tyler meets his girlfriend Maddie in the park, who is very scared as she is an orphan and fears even Tyler will leave her. Tyler assures her that he won't commit the same mistake his father committed and will always stay by her side. During their conversation, they notice hundreds of birds flying away from the city, which also happened in the previous apocalypse. Dave gets stuck in a traffic jam, but upon noticing the birds in the sky, he abandons his car and starts running towards the park. He spots Tyler, and they embrace each other. The trio then rushes out of the park, and they find Milton and Laura outside. Everyone gets in the car, and Milton drives off towards the shelter. However, once they reach the shelter, they get the unfortunate news that only children and women are allowed in the shelter. Dave asks Maddie, Laura, and Tyler to go in, but Tyler's love for his dad stops him from abandoning him. Soon, everyone gets the news that the shelter is completely filled, and now no one will be allowed to enter the facility. The group again gets in Milton's car, and Milton decides to take them to the school's basement, whereas Dave suggests going to Ted's shelter. As the car belongs to Milton, so he follows his own instincts and starts going towards the school, only to get stuck in traffic again. Soon, Dave and Milton get in a fight over who's going to drive, and during this fight, a creature comes flying, picks up a shrieking Milton, and takes him away. Dave urges everyone to get in and quickly starts to drive towards Ted's shelter. A little while later, Maddie asks if the theory that these creatures die with salt is true, and Dave replies in affirmative. As they continue to drive, the car starts to run out of fuel. Dave tells them it will stop after a few miles and they need to change the vehicle. Later on the road, Dave notices a bunch of cars stranded in their way. He goes out while asking Laura to sit in the driver's seat and run away if something happens. Dave checks some vehicles and finds dead bodies lying inside. He then notices an empty car and sits on the driver's seat, only to find an old man in the back seat. The man points his finger towards a creature who's checking cars, and both of them pretend to be dead. The creature passes by them and starts to devour a dead man. Dave reverses the car slowly and brings it parallel to his car. Then he signals his family to come, but as they get out of the car, The creature notices them and starts moving towards them. The stranger gets out of the car and throws salt at it. This only stops it for a moment, and then it kills the man. Laura and the kids utilize the opportunity to run towards Dave's car, and as soon as they get in, Dave drives off. Upon reaching their destination, they knock at the door, but no one opens up. Ted inside is shown to be watching the family on CCTV while someone is holding him at gunpoint. The family starts to panic. However, Dave is sure that Ted is inside. Tyler notices the creatures coming down from the mountains towards them. As the creatures come near, the door finally opens, and they all greet each other. Ted apologizes for not opening the door earlier, as he was not able to hear them. Dave notices Garrett, so Ted informs Dave that Garrett's father and Ted work together. Dave introduces his family to Garrett, and Garrett tells him that he got separated from his team, and he had to come to Ted's shelter. In the meantime, Dave notices a gun in Garrett's pocket and becomes suspicious of him. Later at dinner, Maddie asks how the monsters sense them, and Garrett tells her that they sense light and movement. He adds that these creatures can see people's souls and test their spirits to ensure survival of the fittest. He then tells them how he survived during the previous day of reckoning. As Garrett is busy narrating his story, Ted signals Dave to grab a knife and hide it. Garrett suggests everyone to sleep while he stays up to guard the shelter, but Ted signals Dave to stay up. Garrett understands the signal and points his gun at Dave, asking him to put the knife away. Ted then reveals that Garrett has been holding them hostage. As the argument goes on, a centipede-shaped creature crawls through Ted's window and suddenly attacks Stella, who's standing nearby. Ted holds it and throws salt on it, but the centipede escapes. Dave uses this opportunity to punch Garrett and snatch his gun. Dave then shoots at the centipede. It falls to the ground and Maddie cuts it in half. Dave orders Tyler to tie Garrett. Meanwhile, Dave notices through the CCTV that a bull-shaped creature is bashing his head on the door. He tells everyone that the door can't hold much longer. Ted informs them about an underground tunnel that leads to the RZLN mountains, but he doesn't want to take Stella outside as it isn't safe for her. Garrett informs them his car is parked a few miles away, and he can take them to the gates. He adds that these gates were the source through which the creatures entered, and since they are all out into the world, the gates are safe. The group reluctantly believes him, and Ted provides them with his weapons. Everyone starts to enter the tunnel except Dave. He stays behind and opens the door to shelter. As a beast comes inside, Dave blows it up and hurriedly leaves to enter the tunnel, closing the gate behind him. As they start to walk, Stella's health deteriorates, and she fails to walk properly. While everyone is checking her, Tyler notices a dead monster standing beside the tunnel. Maddie goes to touch it, but Tyler shouts at her to stop. Suddenly, a centipede comes from underground and grabs Maddie's ankle. Dave and Tyler pull Maddie, while Laura shoots at the centipede, saving Maddie. Garrett then asks Dave to untie him so that he can also help them. Dave hesitates at first, but then accepts his request. As Dave goes ahead, Garrett looks at an injury on his arm and hides it from the group. A while later, Garrett finds his vehicle and everyone gets in, but unfortunately the car fails to start. Garrett goes out to repair the car while creatures start to descend from the mountains. Stella realizes that she won't survive for long, so she grabs Ted's gun and jumps out of the car. Ted shouts at her to stop and tries to take the gun away, but she turns around and gives herself to the creatures. Dave pulls Ted into the car while Garrett finally starts it. Everyone leaves with heavy hearts and a crying Ted. They reach the gates, but no one answers Garrett's call through the radio. They now enter very cautiously, anticipating an attack. Upon entering, they notice that the power is out, and Maddie points out that Ted's back is bleeding. Garrett informs them about a supply room in the basement, so Laura, Tyler, and Maddie find the first aid box and treat Ted's wound. Dave and Garrett go to fix the power, and once it is fixed, they start to walk towards the basement, but Garrett notices a drop of blood falling on his head. Both of them look up, spot a dead body, and hear the voice of the creature. Dave, along with Garrett, rush down to inform the family about the dead body. Garrett tells them that there's a blast-proof storage room full of chemicals which can be used for hiding. As they go back, a creature attacks Garrett from behind. Dave and Garrett shoot at him together, finishing him off. However, an infected Garrett runs away and locks himself in the chemical room. He then checks his wounds and injects himself with a chemical. Outside, the group enters another room where Dave notices water droplets coming from a pipe. He decides to funnel the salt water through the tank pipes so they can spray it on the creatures. He asks Tyler and Ted to take care of everyone else and leaves to execute the plan. Dave goes to the tanks through ventilation and then turns the faucet, slowly causing the tanks to fill up with water. Dave makes his way back, but a creature grabs his leg. He throws salt at the monster, and it turns to dust. In the meantime, the group is attacked by other creatures, and Tyler shoots them off with his gun. Dave announces through the radio to turn on the fire alarms, but the creatures keep getting closer. Ted asks Tyler to protect the family, and he goes to finish off the creatures only to be killed by them instead. Tyler, on the other hand, runs out of bullets and starts the fire alarm, causing the salt water to fall on the creatures and turning them into dust. At the same time, the eclipse ends, and the creatures start to go back to their origin. Meanwhile, a troubled Garrett comes out of the room and shoots Tyler in his shoulder. However, Dave comes and hits Garrett's head from behind, making him fall to the ground. Dave then reunites with his family and hugs them when suddenly a creature appears and starts to devour Garrett. The family runs to the basement and creates a salty mixture in a cylinder. Soon the monster follows them down, and as it opens the door, they kick the cylinder at him. The cylinder explodes and the monster turns into dust. The movie ends with the family coming out of the gates only to find the whole world destroyed, but they have hope to rebuild it. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.